I have to say, in terms of anime adaptations that are based on an ongoing source material that clearly have caught up to said source material, you know the likelihood of another season is probably not going to happen. You hold on to the hope, and maybe years down the line you get it. But there is a very good shot that this will be the last we ever see of this in terms of anime. Sure, the manga's there, but there's plenty of people, myself included, who don't really enjoy reading manga all that much. So this might be the last taste of this story we ever get. And to be honest, it's not the worst stopping point I've seen. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of story clearly left to tell, and I imagine the manga has a lot of good ideas in their head. But ultimately, if this was the last I saw of it, I don't feel betrayed by not knowing where it goes from here. Mainly because there's key plot points you think in your head are probably going to come to fruition. One, Noe killing our boy, probably going to happen. I mean, the very first episode of this show pretty much hints that he will eventually be killed by Noe. And after everything we've learned about the idea of the book and the more he uses it, the more of a monster he'll technically become, by the time they reach their end goal, I wouldn't be shocked if he does kill him. Sure, maybe they'll write away that ultimately he doesn't have to get killed and it was just a red herring, something to bait us into thinking one thing and a different thing happened, but I could leave this show right now feeling like Noe and Vanitas, they ended up in a point where I feel proud to have seen how far low and high they have grown and kind of fallen together. That's what makes, I think, an episode like this so good, is that, of course, there's key points to this episode that a lot of people probably saw coming. A lot of people last week, I saw them say, there's no way he stabbed him, it was just a good cliffhanger, and it turned out it was an excellent cliffhanger. He didn't stab at all, he actually held back, and we got all that emotional struggles between two brothers, honestly three brothers if you really look at it. I mean, Noe and him are without a doubt brothers at this point. They may not share blood, but ultimately, like, that connection feels brotherly through and through. And I love seeing that tension to then ultimately a rooftop conversation. Ending and starting the episode in such a violent and tormented way, having Noe's former master pop up, to then ending it just sitting on these blue rooftops, which I thought was a great choice. Having the rooftops be blue, talking about the history of the vampire of the blue moon, what happened to Luna, why ultimately he's responsible for everything, his true goal, and then to just see how it actually ended in a fairly peaceful way, and the idea of like admitting like he would rather the brother he chose to kill him if push came to shove, rather than the brother he ended up having back in the past. And I thought it was just such a bittersweet way to tie it all together, and you know there's still more story to tell. There are these open character arcs, but I think the main one, you can kind of headcanon where it goes from here if we never get to see more. But of course, I'm going to hold on to the hope that eventually we'll get something, even if it takes Devil's a Part-Timer Season 2 time to eventually get to it. Now, in terms of the meat and potatoes of the episode, which was the more emotional strain, I mean, they did a hell of a good job. There's a lot of wide shots in this episode that really put into perspective the isolation and distance between the characters, on top of just having some gorgeous and, I mean, outright bone-chilling imagery. When the brother ended up, like, going crazy, and you just, I don't know, there's something so, like, sinister about it. Almost like someone opened Pandora's box, and, like, something was sucking away him and turning him into something else. Almost looked like he was becoming, like, a wolf-like creature. And just to see the numerous horror shots, as you simultaneously have some gorgeous effects in the background and the books and things like that, it was badass and frightening, as much as it was amazing to see characters like Dami, which probably had my favorite point in the episode for artistic direction. Very simple, I've seen it before, but it always gets a kick out of me, and that is the idea of using black and white filtering to kind of show like isolation, loneliness, fear, the shortcomings a character believes they have, and then over the course of that kind of like internal fight, you see her gain more and more color to then ultimately the little girl can be held back by the bright and positive imagery of the present day Dami. I thought that was just such a great touch, as much as I thought they did a great job with facial reactions. I mean, there's certain shots in this episode, especially this one of Vanitas, where there's something so innocent and pure about certain shots like these that you don't get to see in a character like him, who for most of the show has kind of been in the forefront as the one leading the charge. Follow me or I'll leave you behind. I'm the big boss. And then to see him stripped down to almost like an innocent boy, it was pretty painful, and I thought innocent / amazing to see in the final moments that this show has to offer. And that's why I leave pretty damn satisfied. I mean, if I ever get the itch to see where it goes from here, I mean, I imagine it'll take a year or two for there to be a good handful of chapters that are out there in order to see where the story wants to go, as I do know the manga does take hiatuses from time to time on top of the release schedule. So ultimately, you gotta wait for a bit to even see where it goes, even if you want to jump into the manga. But I think if I ever do get that itch, the manga's there for me. But truthfully, I could probably leave and rewatch this show and not feel betrayed if this is the last I see of it. Many people might disagree with that. They need to see everything. But watching anime for as many years as I have, I've seen way worse endings in terms of catching up to a manga and leaving it off. And I think they did the best they could with the material that was there. Seemingly, from what I've been told and been hearing, they caught up. I guess there wasn't anything really original unless they did add some things here and there. But I mean, this is a great stopping point, I think, for anime fans. And obviously, the manga fans are probably eager to see where the next arc goes in the source material once it finally gets its kind of momentum moving and it can really get into like dozens of chapters ahead of where the anime left off here. Honestly, the biggest thing for me in terms of it being disappointing that the anime isn't continuing, so if you did jump into the manga, is the lack of an OST. Because sometimes when it comes to a lot of anime adaptations, the thing that holds me to sticking with an anime is the voice actors. Sometimes the animation and directing can be the big star, but usually it's the voice actors, which they did a great job, don't get me wrong. But that Fate level OST is so goddamn impressive. And sure, if I really wanted to, I could bring up the OST, I could be reading the manga, play it at certain points. But there's something just so great about how Bones went about directing and kind of placing these certain tracks. Sometimes they would have a style of music in this show that I would think I would normally put that in an action sequence. And then there'd be other points where I'd be like, wow, that would be normally what I would place as a more somber sequence, and they're flipped around. And that's the really cool thing about the directing that I think gets underappreciated and undervalued in a show like this, where if it does have action, the thing people are talking about is, of course, the fight animation. If there is a big shocking death moment or brutal moment, you know, it's the voice actors. But for me, I think out of everything I've seen in this show, the music is my favorite anime part about the anime. Obviously, the story and stuff, I mean, that just it corresponds to both the manga and the anime. The thing that is specifically for the anime has to be that OST. And I think, I mean, I've hyped up the OST a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's not just like it's good music. It's so well placed in the proper locations, and it's done in such ways that you don't typically see. Like a big epic piece of music is always going to be in a battle location or like characters about to duke it out. But I just think the way they sprinkled it out throughout these episodes, especially in the second course, since the second core was a lot more intense, it's just something that needs to be praised and something that I'm going to be very missing if I do decide to jump into the manga someday. And, you know, I'd ultimately have to pick the music myself, which I could do, but honestly, I'm a little lazy, so I probably wouldn't do that. I'd just leave the OST playing in the background and let it shuffle whatever it wants to play. Thoughts if you have any, either if you're a fan of the manga or if you're brand new to the story like myself, what did you think? Do you think it's a good stopping point? You can hold on to the hope that we might see another 12 episodes years down the line? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.